But let's just talk about the scenario where a council has decided to refuse your development application. You as an applicant in that scenario would typically have what's called appeal rights. So if you're not happy with the refusal, which most developers aren't, you would strongly be considering seeking legal advice and potentially filing an appeal. So in an appeal setting, ultimately, if that appeal goes the whole 9 yards, that matter, that appeal will be decided by a judge, the court, effectively. If you're taking an appeal from start to finish, where you're asking a judge to decide that matter and deliver a judgment, that can be a very costly process, both in terms of time and money and risk of uncertainty on the outcome. Okay? So most appeals take at least 12 months to resolve themselves. And when you're thinking about the time, that's usually after you've spent at least 12 months getting that development application to that point, either to refusal or otherwise. So you've got this extra period of time that you need to account for, allow for, in allowing appeal to run its course. But then you have the cost, the money, the financial side of things. You have to engage a team of lawyers, a team of experts. If it goes through a contested hearing where you're asking a judge to decide a matter, you'll have barristers, and the fees continue to go up and up and up and up.
You'd want to be probably a fairly seasoned developer to go through this process, right? And obviously, no matter what consultant you have or who's representing you, like you said, it's not a guaranteed outcome. So you better have enough money to run the risk of the time and the cash to actually get that done. So I highly, I myself wouldn't be recommending anyone that's, fairly new that say, I want to get 4 on here, or 5 on there, and they're only allowing 4. No, that's it. I'm going to go to court just so I can get that extra one. Is probably not the most ideal. And of course, you would probably recommend that as well.
Yeah, that's right. And those seasoned developers that do find themselves in those appeal settings recognize the value of compromise and negotiation.
Yeah.
So it is not a quick process. And there are opportunities and requirements of that process to come to the table with the other parties in that appeal and see if you can negotiate or resolve the issues. And so if a developer has the opportunity to resolve an appeal before it gets before a judge, there's a lot of value in exploring that, because once it goes before a judge, the certainty or the risk around the outcome is largely an unknown. Because when things get to a contested hearing in court, often you have two sides that are arguing against each other for their particular preferred outcome. And both sides believe that they've got a good chance of winning. So quite often, the prospect of success for any one side is no better than 50-50. And so you're effectively flipping a coin on the outcome of a multi-million-dollar development potentially that you have so much invested in. For what? For maybe an extra dwelling or an extra story. So there's a lot of value in resolving or negotiating those issues before it gets to that point. But the other thing I think that Carson was kind of talking to was another scenario where in some planning jurisdictions or systems, there's an opportunity to file an appeal, to start an appeal process before the council or the agency has even decided the application. And we use this term deemed refusal. So effectively, council has taken too long and you're sick of waiting for them to make a decision, for council to either approve or you refuse your development application. In some instances, you have the ability to start an appeal process. And that tactic is sometimes used to bring matters to a head, where a developer may have advice to say, look, council's just dragging the chain. They're potentially going to take another 12 months to decide this. If we file an appeal now, we can force their hand and bring the courts in to try and facilitate an outcome quicker. But again, that process is not a quick process, and it's going to cost you a lot of time and money. So getting that early advice before you pull that trigger is really important. So informed town planners and legal practitioners can help inform you of the risks and the opportunities that might exist in commencing an appeal. But in the majority of instances, you don't want to find yourself in an appeal setting.